Welcome to Mama Uprooted. I'm Emily, and I believe we're all a little uprooted, learning to grow in new soil. This is your space for real stories, real growth, and real life motherhood. No way is wrong here. Let's grow through it together. All right, so I have Kennedi here with me today, and I'm so excited for you to be here. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and we'll just kind of roll into it. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. This is like an area I'm super passionate about. Good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your practice and what you do and kind of just the generic side of it.
Yeah. So my practice is called My Journey Therapy. It's right here in Midland. We service all over Michigan, though, virtually. So I have been a social worker since 2019. But got into the postpartum world when I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter, which was my firstborn. I was experiencing some perinatal depression. I didn't know it, but like I should have, right?
Yeah.
I'm a social worker, like I work in mental health, but I didn't even know it. So if that goes to show you that, you know, whoever else might not notice what they're feeling or that it's not normal, and that there's help out there.
Yeah, and that's kind of what led you to really open up your practice. I mean, and just go on the journey that you did, which is amazing. I mean, so how many people are in your practice now?
Our team has 7 part-time therapists. There's only 2 perinatal focused, me and another therapist, but lots of different areas as well. So it's really cool.
That's super needed. I mean, same thing. Like my first child, I probably should have been seeing you, but I didn't know, you know, and I didn't have any direction to. So I'm so glad you're here. We can have a chat today and just really dive into what if you have any struggling, if you're struggling or uprooting motherhood today, to really, we're all growing differently and how we can manage that. Whether you're a mom, you're a dad, you're a grandparent, your loved ones, like how we can support motherhood. And so we'll just kind of dive into it. We have so many questions today that I'm gonna be asking you. And I'm still learning and growing. I have a 1-year-old and 3-year-old, but I'm still growing.
Same.
And that's okay.
Same. I am too.
And how many kids do you have?
2. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and we just had our son in October. So he just turned 6 months old.
So we just say we're in the thick of it.
Yeah,
You're a rockin' world.
For sure. We are, yes.
Awesome. Well, the first question I kind of want to dive into, and I think this is a huge one you already kind of led into, is for listeners who may not know, perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. And how common are they? This is something personally that I had no idea. You said the same thing. I had no idea that I had. So give us a little bit of background about it, and kind of, when you're looking at these, do you say PMADs?
We say PMADs.
PMADs,
just because it's like
love that.
A lot shorter.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I never know with these acronyms today. Like, how do you say that? Yeah. I'm not an acronym person. I'm just rather just giving it to it. Yes. But perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, I mean, they are extremely common. And so give me a little bit of explaining the difference of those and kind of bunching them of going forward. So
it's kind of like an umbrella term.
Yeah.
Underneath is anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD and trauma, bipolar disorder, and psychosis.
Yeah.
There's the prevalence is kind of more heavy on anxiety and depression. That's a lot more common to experience those two. And research shows that 1 in 5 women will develop a PMAD and 1 in 10 men.
Wow.
So it's interesting to kind of look at that side too, because, males aren't physically going through it, but their life changes too.
Yeah.
But that's also too, I always point out, like, that's the research. That's what's reported. And like, even if I think of my personal experience, like, was my statistic reported? So if it's not reported or if it's not diagnosed or even known, there's likely a lot more people who are experiencing
absolutely.
it.
I mean, I think I had all of it. It's like, it's absolutely crazy because I've told you before, we were talking previously, is I went through, my daughter was severely colicky. And I literally felt like, I think I was just like foggy, like my eyes were never clear. And then one day I just woke up and I was like, okay, I'm here. It was so strange.
Yeah.
And I personally remember, going through it and telling people like, something's not right. Like I'm not fully myself. And for me, like friends tell me, I'm always energetic. I'm talkative. I'm lively, you know, but we also had our daughter in the winter. So we were stuck inside, and it was still kind of towards that COVID time where we all had to just kind of stay home. So it was terrible.
Yes.
And I got to have a social life. But yeah, so I feel like I just had all of it because just one day I just woke up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm here. I'm okay. Like I'm alive. Like it was a year
Where
later,
was I?
you know? So it's like, even though you go to your 6-month postpartum checkup, it's so hard because this is where it gets, you know, I'm like, my doctor, I love my doctor. I love everything she did. But at the end of the day, I was like, I wish I would have been forced to go to counseling just to really do a clearance. You know, I wish I would have known about you. And so, because I think it's really important for moms, no matter how you're feeling, we should talk to somebody. Because especially your first child, we want to be independent. We want to be strong. I can't tell you how many times I said to people, like, I think people did ask me, you know, if I needed some help, but I was like, I got this. And I went through, I mean, it was a battle. I mean, this is raw rooted, you know, like it was very, very difficult for me to become a first-time mom because I had no idea. You have this baby, they pop this baby on you, you leave the hospital and you're expected to just do it. My husband went to work the next week. I'm like, what? I'm by myself. Like, what am I supposed to? Okay, I'm supposed to take care of this baby. I'm supposed to learn how to breastfeed. I'm supposed to learn all these things. And you're so by yourself, and it's a scary world. And so we develop all these things, you know. What is one of the main things that you are seeing in your practice as far as anxiety and disorders and things like that when it comes to it? And is there something that, you know, you start off by helping moms when it comes to that?
Yeah. Assessment, really, you know, going over the symptoms, the frequency, the severity, and really kind of gauging like which category they fall into, because it is different and they're differently treated. So we kind of start there, and then we create like a treatment plan to figure out like, what are your goals? What can we work towards? And what are the objectives to those goals? And how can we get you there? Because that's what we want to do.
No, that's perfect. I mean, doing an assessment, just even 6 months postpartum would be amazing, even a year. So I think that, you know, that's something that we should see in our healthcare system is, hey, you need to go see Kennedi at 6 months, and you need to go see her at a year, and doing your follow-ups, because it's so important. Because again, we all grow differently. We're all in different stages. Because I went a year, but some people don't see things till like what are usually like 6 months sometimes, right? I mean, depending on how your hormones are going and your lifestyle and everything. So what are people seeing like life stage wise? Like, is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it instantly?
Yeah, it's all over. It really is. And I think it just has a lot to do with how your body is shifting and changing, the hormones and all of that kind of stuff. But more often we're seeing it right away. And that is like after the baby blues phase. And the baby blues phase is considered 2 weeks postpartum. So it's very typical to see these symptoms up to 2 weeks.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, so what are some signs of a mom might be experiencing more than the typical baby blues?
Yeah. So timeline, and then kind of the frequency and severity of the symptoms. If you're noticing that past 2 weeks, you're still, you know, like excessively crying and tearful, or, you know, horrible, scary thoughts, panic, you know, a huge disturbance in sleep and appetite, not wanting to do anything that brought you joy like it did before, and it's not getting better, or it's getting worse. That's where we would say, let's go evaluate these symptoms and see if there could be a diagnosis here, and let's do something with that.
Well, and that's the way that, you know, we talked about earlier, society as a whole, we're supposed to, as women, hold ourselves together. We're, you know, again, like I get this baby, I take them home, I'm just supposed to do it. You know, no one ever acknowledges these thoughts, these feelings. You know, a lot of times like, you're just tired. You know, I got that a lot. You just need to take a nap. And I'm like, that's when it was like kind of triggering. Like, yeah, I need to take a nap, but I also need to take care of my baby. You know, I had a C-section. So I slept on a couch for almost, I don't know, I don't even remember. See, it's like, you know, my brain's gone. And having a C-section because our bed was so high up, and it was my first C-section. And having to literally, you know, my husband's sleeping in the bed. He's in his own bedroom. I'm on the couch. I'm breastfeeding her every 2 hours. Am I sleeping? Am I not? You're really not even sleeping because I'm constantly worried about the baby.
Yeah.
Because I'm in all of these anxiety perinatal moods. I'm everywhere. Right. So there's just so many different things. And there never was this, what can I do to help you kind of thing? Because I felt like I was the one that was the sole person to take care of my child. And I had to do it. I had to do it. I didn't ever ask for help because it's my responsibility. This is what I went through. So I was constantly telling myself that, but in reality, I needed some help.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
I mean, and what about your experience on that side of things with your first, for sure?
Yeah. I definitely experienced it with my daughter, my firstborn. I had a C-section too for both. But so, that physical, you can't do anything and you want to, right? And you still have to, but they send you home and you're like bound to your bed.
And I can't wait to talk about that on another podcast.
Yes, exactly.
For sure. The C-section in a whole is a whole nother story.
Yes, it is. It really is. But no, just kind of like you said, I was just in this fog for weeks. Like your life changes in the snap of a finger.
Yeah.
And they just send you home, and then you're just like,
bye.
Yeah.
They're waving you on.
Yeah.
All the nurses are cheering and everything's so perfect.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. And my husband is incredible. Like he is the best dad ever to our kids, but he doesn't understand what's going on internally. Right. So, he'd take our daughter and I'm like, just take her for a minute. And I'd go in the shower and I'd just be bawling my eyes out. And he's like, what's wrong? What can I do?
They don't know how to support
I'm like,
you.
I don't know because I don't know what's wrong with myself.
Yeah.
So
that happened several times to me.
Yeah.
Like I even had a freak out in the hospital. I mean, raw truth, guys. Like this is, I told you I was getting to the raw truth.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. It's not butterflies and rainbows, but the next thing I want to talk about is scary thoughts because we are literally mental. I constantly say we're in the thick of it. We were just so, I just look back and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really scary. And the intrusive thoughts that we have, like, why do these happen? And what should moms know if they experience them? Because I know I was, and I'm going to be honest, like it was scary.
Yeah, they're terrifying.
I thought something was literally wrong with me. I mean, you get raw again because you think people are like, I'm going to wonder why people go into these murder things and those stories, those crazy podcasts. It's real. Yeah. These thoughts are real. And so tell us a little bit more about those scary, intrusive thoughts that women do get in their heads.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with intrusive thoughts, so I'll keep it brief. This typically is like sessions and sessions and sessions of working through. But so I guess the one thing to note about intrusive thoughts are that they're very, very common. They're intensified during any change in your life. And what bigger change occurs when you have a baby, have a newborn. But intrusive thoughts it's really important to keep in mind that any thought at all, we have zero control over. So I hear a lot of times, my clients are saying like, gosh, I just, I wish I didn't have these thoughts and I wish I had more control over them, or I wish I could stop them. You can't. Unfortunately, you just can't, because it's just the way that our human minds and brains function.
Yeah.
And so to kind of like, strip that idea from it can be a little bit empowering to know that like, I'm not putting these there.
Right.
They're just there. And also the difference between, I think, so we talk about intrusive thoughts being scary, right? Because a lot of times it's like, I'm carrying, trigger warning here, but I'm carrying my baby down the stairs and I'm just picturing dropping her down the stairs.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, what?
It's real.
What just went through my mind? That was terrifying.
Makes me sick to my stomach thinking about
why am I thinking of that, right? And I always make sure that with the work that I'm doing, there's no intent behind these thoughts, right? They are just
I say
thoughts.
that. I mean, all the time I'm like, I think about it, but I know for a fact that I would never do something like that.
Exactly.
But why are these thoughts coming through me?
Yes.
Like, my daughter was extremely colicky. I just remember thinking in my head, like, I'm just going to throw her against the wall. But I know I would never do that.
No.
There was times when I had those thoughts. My husband was working night shift and I'm calling him. I'm like, you got to come home, because I was feeling so scared and I was shaking, and I'm like, those thoughts kept coming through. And I'm like, that's why I would call him. Even if he's at work, I'm like, I'm having these thoughts, I'm calling somebody because that scared me. And I'm glad that I was calling people, but it was like some women don't have that support. They don't have that ability to, how do we get through this? And so that's, where you kind of hopefully come in as well for them.
Yes. And I'm always reminding clients too is good moms have scary thoughts, right? Like you might have heard that phrase before, but we do because we're good moms, right? If we weren't scared of those thoughts, that's where a cause for concern, like psychosis.
Right.
And that's a real thing too, right?
Absolutely.
Where it's intentional or there's no intent.
Well, and this is why I feel like, and you feel the same way, but I feel like this is why every mom, I don't care what age you are, I don't care how many kids you've had, I feel like we all should have to go through someone like you after having a baby, and just getting these assessments just to make sure we're okay, and how do we figure out how to get support. And that's kind of, another reason why I've started this is just to try to make women feel like they are supported. We all go through the same thing. We're all growing differently, but we intentionally, we're going through the same stuff. Yeah. We're all different plants, but we're uprooted, but we're still growing. But how do we get this? How do we get the support? Where do we go? What are the next steps? The biggest thing is I feel like we do have resources out there, but how do we get these resources? There's lots and lots of resources out there. And I talked to you about this earlier, but it's like, I didn't know about you. If I would have, my daughter, if someone would have handed me, like my doctor would have said, hey, I want you to go get an assessment. You got to do it. I would do it. I would have done it. I know I would have. I'm sure many other women would have too. But it's like there are resources out there, but how do we get them? So going into kind of our next thing is so many moms are afraid to speak up because their fear of judgment or worse intervention. This is huge for me because I grew up where I felt like I was telling you, like I needed to act a certain way. I held myself together. As women in the generation that I grew up in, you pull yourself together. You don't show people your pain. You don't cry it. If you want to cry, you got to do it in a private place. You need to go out. You need to make sure you have your makeup on, your hair on. Don't walk out that door without looking perfect. So we're always, in this generation of you can't show that. And so now we're in the stage where, again, we're afraid to speak up. We're afraid to really tell people we need help. So how can we normalize these thoughts while still encouraging moms to seek support when it comes to these fears, these judgments, the intervention aspect, and just kind of open up a little bit to make people feel comfortable that it's okay. Yeah. It is okay.
Yes. Yeah. We have to challenge the guilt that comes with that because anything that we are not supposed to be feeling is going to come with guilt. Yeah. Like you're doing something wrong. You're not being a good enough mom. Do I love my baby enough? Because, all these things, like we have to challenge that
all the time
to get past, that hill of, okay, I deserve support and I deserve help, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think, like with the first baby, I was like, no, I got this. I'm so independent. Yes. I buried all of my negative feelings, those thoughts, everything I buried. My second baby, people always say, the more kids you have, the more comfortable you are. And it is so true. The second baby, I realized I need to ask for help. Like if I am feeling this way, I need to ask for help because I knew what I went through. And we didn't want to have a second baby because my husband was I remember him being almost like, ooh, what you just went through? You want to have another baby? Yeah. I'm like, I don't, because we were so afraid that I was going to go through the same thing. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to survive this. We were literally thinking mentally, am I going to be able to survive a second baby because of what I just went through? Yeah. Luckily, he was on a day shift job. So I was like, that's the only way we're going to try is if we do this. So, so the second baby was like, okay, I got support. I know that I need to ask for help. I know when to call my mom and be like, hey, listen, next steps here. Come help me. I need to take a shower.
Yeah.
So as far as, this kind of leads us into the next thing is I personally felt like I was losing myself in motherhood, especially with the first baby. This even kind of goes in with my second baby in a weird way. Yeah. Because I feel like my second baby, I've kind of switched gears a little bit. Having two kids is a lot.
It is.
It's so again, this is why I'm it kind of entails too. It doesn't matter how many kids you have. It doesn't matter if it's your first baby, your last baby. We're always in the thick of this. What are the next steps? We evolve as mothers. We're changing. We're growing. But this is a question that I feel like, especially with my second baby, that has made me want to really talk to you about and our audience about is, I personally felt like I lost myself in motherhood. Like I literally disappeared.
Yeah.
Like after having 2 kids, and you tell me how you feel too,
Okay.
like personally, you are like, you get lost. Like you are literally the last thing on anybody else's mind, especially with multiple children, let alone self-care for yourself. But like, this is where I struggle with even today is how can moms begin to reconnect with who they are now? Because I lost all my hobbies.
Yeah.
I don't have anything for myself anymore. Before kids, this life, you can do whatever you want. You can go out with friends. You can have your best hobby. I showed horses. I miss that. I was always in a friend group and a friend circle. You're reshifting your focus, but women are feeling so single. Like we disappeared. And I, again, get those thoughts. Like, I don't know, this really is impactful for me because I get strange thoughts again. Like, do I have friends? Do people want to hang out with me? Do people like me?
Start to question who we are.
I question it.
Yeah.
And so that's where I feel like I disappear because I have social media and people can comment on my things all day long, but at the same time, is it real? Is this reality?
Yeah.
Like I had a group of friends recently, a horse group. They went out and had this big thing. And I was looking at their pictures on social media and I'm thinking, nobody asked me to come. And I was really sad about it.
Yeah.
And so then I started putting my thoughts, like I was negatively thinking, did they forget about me? Do they not like me anymore? But then I'm like talking to my mom about it. I'm like, she's like, don't take it personally. Like it doesn't, they forgot you, So I like reached out to the girlfriend and I was like, oh my God, it looks so fun. She's like, you should come next time. So it was like, okay, you didn't forget about me. You still like me.
Yeah.
But like, like being a parent, I've lost friends. I've lost just really good relationships. I've lost my hobbies. It's like we disappear in a weird way. And how can we reconnect to who we want to be? And what are the next steps when it comes to having children? Because I love my kids.
Yeah.
But I also need to be in the world and be myself. So give me some insight on that.
Yeah. Well, I think like where you ended is kind of like where I want to start. Like we have to be who we are for our kids, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We want our kids to grow up knowing who we are, what we like, what we're good at, what our hobbies are, because they're going to learn from us.
Oh, it's huge.
They're
they
role
soak it in.
models in life.
Everything.
Like moms can do this, or women can do this, or dad can do this, and dad is really good at this. And we have to be our own individual self as well. It's easier to get lost in motherhood. And so I think that's why we kind of just fall into that, right? Because we're already tired. We're already overwhelmed. We don't want to put in any extra effort to, do anything else for ourselves when we're feeling that way.
Yeah.
But we have to. We have to just make it look more realistic, like in a sense of where we're at with life now. I really loved to work out when before I had kids. And I still do like to do that, but it looks nothing like it did before.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not as intense. It's definitely not as frequent. Sometimes it's just like in my basement at home when I get a half hour that, my husband can just be with the kids upstairs.
It's like scheduling.
Yes.
You're literally penciling in time for yourself.
Yes.
And it's a priority.
You have to. And that's hard.
It's very hard.
Yeah. So that's
very
why we're just like, never mind.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we don't do it.
Exactly.
And that's something I've been trying to focus on. I actually told my husband the other day, I was like, listen, like I need an hour with my horses a week.
Yeah.
And I used to run. I loved running. Cleared my head, made me feel good. Same thing. We need to work out, but thinking about it, I'm like, I don't got time for that today. But if I pencil it in and organize my schedule, so, it's having that communication too with your partner is like, hey, I need 1 hour of this and 1 hour of this, so we, especially as parents, again, another topic for another day, but it's like, as parents, you have to communicate. You have to tell people what you want and how you're feeling out loud. It's very, very hard. It took me a long time to finally just, okay, this is what's happening. I'm going for a run. 1 hour a day. I'm going to, hang out with my horses. I don't care if it's going for a ride or brushing them. Like that's where I need my mental health because I can't just be stuck in this house 24/7 with 2 kids. Like I love them. But yeah, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So what are some like realistic steps mom can take to find themselves again while still being deeply in the trenches of motherhood though? So like you said, like we lose ourselves in motherhood. There are days, and today is a good day, but there are days where you literally, all of it comes into one. Everything we've already talked about is like balls up and you're like, I'm deep in this and you want to just blow up in a way. But realistically, what are some just basic steps to, to help our listeners find themselves again? What can we do on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis or penciling in or however to help us get out of those trenches?
Yeah. I think it's unique for everyone, right? Depending on a lot of different factors. But if we're kind of just talking basic, is using that support and asking for help and getting more comfortable with doing that because it is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For most people,
Very uncomfortable.
I think setting realistic goals. So realistic.
And that's hard. Yeah.
Key word, realistic, because it's not going to look anything like it once did. And then, yes, penciling it in, scheduling it somewhere. Research shows that when we write something down somewhere, we're more likely to do it. Or if it's a goal, write your goal out too. Put it somewhere where you're going to see it over and over and over.
That is very impactful. That is something I pushing myself to do is I write it down.
Yeah.
And I am more likely to do it.
Yes.
So, yes.
Yeah. And start small too. Like we can't have 10 new goals and think, I'm going to start next week, right? When we set ourselves up for too much or unrealistic expectations and it's not met, we are met with disappointment. So when we feel that, then we just give up, right?
Yeah.
So it can be kind of a toxic cycle. So that's kind of why that realistic is really important.
Yeah. What are some tips and tricks that you do with like your patients now, like when they're, kind of struggling with even just like doing things for themselves? I mean, is it really focusing on writing it down and having that goal and organization for their week to week basis? Or, I mean, what are just some other tips and tricks there? Like, it's like, I really want to go for a run every week, I got to pencil it in. I'm going to tell my husband every Tuesday, this is what I'm doing, what are some other ways to just try to do be yourself again, find yourself again, it's like, is it legit just penciling it in? Are there other ways to try to help your brain get back to yourself?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways. Like I said, it's really unique and it's different for everyone. And it works differently for everyone, too.
And that's why we're here. So, we're all growing differently. Yeah. But I mean, everybody thinks differently. So it's just trying to figure out, like, not even though we say, writing down things are great goals, we're going to more likely to do it. But not everybody, thinks that way or works that way. So, what are some other things? It's like, I think about just kind of even just like 5 minutes in the shower. Hey, I'm going to go communication, telling my husband, hey, I'm going to literally take a long shower. I want to do my full skincare. I want to do my full makeup. Like, I just want to be refreshed. There's just simple tips and tricks. It's not always just going for a workout or going out of the household. What are some other things that you would suggest for helping people just that are in these trenches?
Yeah. When someone is really in the trenches, I really check in on just basic needs.
Okay.
What are you eating? Are you hydrating? Are you just like moving from room to room in your house, right? Like, are you actually like changing your focus and your environment at all? Are you talking to anyone, a friend? Like, when's the last time you texted someone or called someone?
I love that. Didn't even think that.
Yeah, just
great
little
reminder.
Things.
I didn't even think about that. Oh yeah, I should see if I'm eating, because that doesn't happen often. I'm usually eating scrap cold toast.
Yeah, it's like noon, and I'm on my third time warming up the same cup of coffee.
Yes.
Stepping outside for fresh air, like that change in temperature.
Huge.
If the sun's out, how incredible that can feel for us.
And is that, and just for even fresh air in general, when we are having like those anxiety and those panic attacks, that's something that I do enjoy. Like, I've got to step out for a second, because that fresh air really helps me just breathe again.
Yeah. It's grounding. It's an actual grounding, and it's very mindful.
Yes.
Too.
Oh my gosh. So, no, I didn't think about that. I mean, that dives us into like, those are, I want to talk about today these powerful questions of how we can ask new moms that, like, how to support them. And that almost just reels right into what you were saying is, what have you eaten today? have you drank water? Have you took a shower? Because that whole question, take a shower, no one ever asked me that. I mean, my hair was in a bun. I had hair down to my stomach. My hair was in a bun, ended up like getting like dreadlocks in my hair. And I ended up cutting all my hair off, my first baby, just because I didn't even brush my hair.
Yeah.
I don't remember anyone asking me. Like maybe they did, but maybe I was just such in a fog, but I don't remember like people just saying like, did you eat? Did you drink? Did you do this? So what are some powerful questions, as far as, we can ask moms to truly, show support, because this is really good for grandparents, for your in-laws, for your friends, your family. Like, we need real questions. Do not tell me what to do or what I need. We need questions. So give us those questions.
Yeah, that's actually, it's a really good question, because I think a lot of times it's always just like, how are you doing? Right. And who's really going to be honest about
Never. I
that?
say fine every single time.
I'm good.
Because I'm Miss Independent.
Yeah. I don't want to tell you about everything.
I'll never tell you.
So what if, it's someone that you trust, someone that you care about, someone that you're closely connected with, and they just say, what are you struggling with right now?
Yeah.
So that it's a much different question, right? And then doing that basic check-in, right? Can I get you some food? Or, hey, I'm stopping here for lunch. What can I get you?
Yeah.
Right? So it's not as easy to say no.
Right.
We just want you to eat, right?
I'm going to drop it off at your doorstep.
Yeah. I'm going to grab you.
I don't need to see you.
I'm going to grab you the coffee that you like. I'm going to fill up your water bottle, while I'm here. And I think just we have to gauge the needs, because it's different for everyone. For me, I wanted someone to come over and hold my baby for me while I did a few other things, like shower, brush my teeth, comb my hair, make my lunch. I wanted to feel a little bit of that independence. But for some people, it might not be like, don't take my baby, right? Like, I want my baby, but there's so much to do around the house. So could you, do the dishes for me that are overflowing in the sink? Could you swap the load of laundry? Could, anything, right?
Well, I'm a list person. Like I hate that. Like, some people don't love lists and people don't, but I'm a list person. Like, I collaborate lists. Like, these are the things I need to get done. This is from start to finish, and that's where I struggle too, is because people want to just tell me what I need to do, or do you just do it? And I'm like, that's not how I like. I'm very like particular, and my husband will laugh about this, but I'm just like, don't put this certain spoon in this drawer. It goes in this drawer. So it is very difficult for me to let go of a lot of things. I have a lot of control, and I've always been like that, and I probably won't ever change, but I literally have to instruct people. And so lists are kind of something that I do. It's not a mean thing. It's like, this helps me tell you exactly what needs to be done and things like that. And as far as like, I wanted to hold my first baby, but like you had mentioned, like, I would want someone to come just hold her, because I feel successful when I get things done myself. Right. Like, I want to go outside and do my horse's stalls. Yeah. I want to go brush my horses. Right. There was a lot of, we brought my horses home just after my baby was born, my first. And my horses are that's what releases I go to the barn for mental therapy. And it just releases I talk to my horses. I love on my horses. Like, that helps me. And when I would see my husband go out there, because he thought, I got to take care of the baby. So he was like going to do the chores. And I'm thinking in my head, I want to do that. That's my thing. That's not your thing. Like, you can hold the baby while I go take care of the baby, take care of the horses and the goats and the farm, like, that was my thing. So it's like, but again, questions. No one ever asked me what I needed or how they could support me. So I think that put me down in mental depression too. When I stopped going out to the barn for months, that was terrible, and I talk about this a lot. It's like, no, I want to do it. I want to go out in the barn. Like, I wish he would have just asked me, do you want to go do horses, or would you like me to do it today? Yeah. Now, if I would have said, hey, you do it today, but it was hard too with a C-section. I couldn't lift a lot of stuff. A lot of limitations. So that was very mental. Yeah. But if someone would just said, hey, do you want to go out and just like stand by your horses for a little bit? You want to brush them? Like, I think that would have been a huge mental load for me, because that's what helps me. Yeah. But for months and months and months not doing that, it was very difficult, So, but now I'm able to do that. That's especially when my anxiety kicks in. I have a lot of anxiety like these days, especially with 2 kids. When I feel that urge of anxiety, I do the fresh air thing. I'm like, hey, I need a second. I'm going to go out to the barn. I don't want to be back in.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So that helps me a lot, for sure. So, but yeah, overall, I mean, how can partners, family, and friends actively support new mom? Like when we get emotionally, mentally, and even physically, I think asking the right questions are key, right? And so what about like when you talk about like parents, you know, like this might be a little raw for a lot of people that are watching and it's hard to talk about this.
Yeah.
But something I feel like I should just do it and say it.
Sure.
But like grandparents.
Yeah.
They were raised differently too.
Yeah.
They don't know how to support their daughters, their daughter-in-laws, things like that. So they come in like, this is how you need to do it. This is what's going on, you know, and that creates a lot of anxiety too.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, my mom is my best friend, but there's times like I've learned, her and I have great communication now where I'm like, I got to tell you how I feel,
Yes. Yeah.
which is great. So we have that relationship, but some people don't have that relationship.
Right.
So how can moms, you know, kind of relay messages without causing a argument too, you know, because that can be something too, is I want people around my family. I want people to learn and grow, but how do we get to a communication where you're supporting me mentally, physically, emotionally, without telling me what to do or how to raise my kids? Because I feel like women get that. Am I right? Like, do people struggle with that, or is it just me?
So many. I think probably 90% of the people that I work with, it's a very common thing.
And it causes stress.
It does. It
a lot
does.
of stress.
Yep, because we want that support.
And we want to love them with our whole hearts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we want that we want that connection for our kids. And but then we struggle with it kind of sometimes personally.
Yeah.
So it's a long road of setting boundaries and being really uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
But it gets you to a much better place
does.
of this is what I need. We have to be assertive. We have to be direct. If they're saying something in a way that doesn't sit right with you, doesn't feel comfortable, or just kind of hurts sometimes, we can address that and say, hey, next time, could you ask me this way? Or next time I will do it this way. Kind of leading, right? Not sometimes pointing the finger doesn't help, right? It makes it worse.
Yep.
But I think too, in general, when it comes to extended family, grandparents, in-laws, and things like that, they're trying, the intent for them is support, right? Like, we're trying to help you. We're trying to tell you this is how we did it, right? But it comes off to us like, step back.
Yeah.
This is my life. And so it's kind of, there's a lot of miscommunication there and misunderstanding.
Right.
So if we're direct about it, we're open about our needs and what we need from them, it's easier for them to come to us and say, okay, this is what Emily needs. I didn't know that.
Right.
So I assumed I came in with my support.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that was what society back in the day, like you didn't really show a lot of emotion. You didn't really, you weren't direct with how you feel. And I feel like sometimes I've learned to just straight up say it. And I feel like people think, oh my gosh, she's a little too much, or something. But I'm like, that helps me say, okay, this is what I need. This is what I want. I'm not trying to be mean whatsoever.
Yeah.
I just have to, because I don't want to ruin that relationship.
For sure.
And I want to show you who I am.
Yeah.
Again, we're all growing differently. We need to learn to speak out, because if you don't speak out, and this is the whole reason of talking to you today, is we don't speak out. We don't ask. We could get in a really bad place.
Yes.
And we don't ever want to get there.
Yep.
I mean, I've had friends end up in the crazy ward, and it makes me so sad because they didn't have that support they needed. There's times I thought maybe I need to go to the crazy ward. Am I okay? Didn't know where to go or what to do and have that support. So I'm so glad you do what you do.
Well, thanks. I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes, absolutely. So kind of just ending on some empowerment and growth. So in my podcast, I really want to leave with kind of some homework for you guys and share with, what are the next steps. If you're any of this conversation we have, we're all over the place, but there's so much to talk about when it comes to postpartum, anxiety, depression, how to support other people. 2 questions I kind of have to leave the audience today with is, every mom grows differently, like we've talked about over and over again, and that is okay. But just like plants, in different soil. So again, we're all just think of that in your head. You stop comparing yourself. Stop, looking at other people. Do you, girl? Like, at the end of the day, do what feels right for you. But what's one piece of encouragement you'd give to a mom who feels like she's not bouncing back the way she expected? And I feel like this is like a huge open-ended question, but giving what you can, this is tough because we both have 2 kids, and I feel like I've never really necessarily bounced back, but I'm finding myself in my own way. I'm growing differently. But what are some good support tools that you typically utilize when someone's like, I'm just not bouncing back the way I feel like I'm drowning. I need some help, but I'm just not getting there.
Yeah. I think just kind of starting by giving yourself some grace, right? Really noticing how hard you're being on yourself. And if we did a role reversal, think of your best friend, right? Or just a really good person in your life that you're super close with. If they were going through this and they were saying this about themselves, what would you tell them?
Yeah.
You would likely say, what? Like, you are doing amazing.
Yeah.
Like, look at you. You're doing A through Z every single day, right? And we have to practice kind of mirroring that.
A hype girl.
Like we have to be our own hype girl.
Absolutely.
We can't really rely on anyone else to do that for us. But we really have to soak that in and be mindful of how we're treating ourselves. Yeah. Because the more that we have those, negative thoughts and we don't address them or manage through some of them, we're just going to keep, digging ourselves deeper in the trench. Yep. Give it some time. Yep. With time comes change, and we never know what that change is going to bring. So it doesn't mean that you're always going to feel this way. I definitely have evolved over the last handful of years. Yeah. Still not exactly where I want to be, but I just kind of like keep the faith that I will continue to grow with my children, and they will continue to kind of like teach me more about life as every day goes on. So yeah, time, being mindful of how you're treating yourself, treat yourself how you would treat your good friends, family members, and how supportive and stuff you would be to them.
No, I love the role play. I mean, because that's just like something like I am working on myself because I put negative thoughts in my head constantly. And that, the new thing in life, I mean, not new, but like that positive mindset is, wake up and be your own hype girl. Yeah. Do whatever you have to do. I mean, there's also times that I've literally picked up the phone and called a friend and be like, I need some hype. Like, I'm feeling so down today. Can you just give me some positive stuff? Like, throw at me. Find your hype girl, be your own hype girl. No, do you guys ever focus on like journaling or gratitude or anything like that when it comes to like, because I do that and I think that has been very impactful in myself and as far as what you do as well, how does that kind of portray within your practice too?
Yeah, I mean the more positive stuff that we're putting in our life intentionally, we kind of adapt to the environment that we're in. Yeah, right. So yeah, if you're journaling, if you're kind of practicing some positive mantras every day, you're more likely to be thinking that way because you're intentionally placing those alternative thoughts there versus always having those negative thoughts or self-doubt or, just the feelings of not being good enough. Yeah. That's a really good way to start. And I think simple, right? Accessible. Anyone can do it. Yeah. Reaching out for social support, joining any like moms groups. There's, like groups around here that moms come together in same phases of life and you can just connect with them, go to therapy.
That's huge.
Find a therapist.
Yeah. I got to have a circle. So mom groups are amazing and definitely, reaching out to your mom groups. Like there are mom groups out there I didn't even know of with my first child. And that's actually how I met Kennedi is through a mom group, Tummy Time. So that was so exciting because I was like, there's what? I learned so many different things that kind of impacted this, starting this and God kind of pushing me towards this. But, and then our last question is, if a mom is listening right now and thinks, this is me, I'm struggling. So we it literally unpacked a lot, guys, in just a short amount of time. We could just keep talking. But what would you want her to know first? Like just, she's waking up, she's listened to this podcast and she's like, you know what? I'm feeling all of these things. And I think even my brain right now, after talking all these things, I'm all over the place. Yeah. Like, I got things to work on. We all got things to work on. We're all digging up our roots. We're all trying to figure it out. But what is like your first step? What would you want her to know first?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like through listening to this podcast, you're definitely not alone, right? Like you are not the only one experiencing this, and that isolation feeling is scary,
Yeah.
you know, to be in that. So yeah, you're not alone, and you are doing the best that you can every single day under the circumstances that you're in. Like you are going through the absolute, hands down, hardest transition and phase of your life.
Yeah.
Seriously. And you're doing it still.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
Absolutely. And that's why I was like, you do you, girl.
Yeah.
You know, when people ask me for advice in general of any type of motherhood, I'm like, you at the end of the day, you need to do what's right for you.
Yep.
You know, getting rid of all the negative thoughts, getting rid of the negative people. You know, if your child needs to sleep with you, your child needs to sleep with you.
Yeah.
If you need to do this or do that, or if you need to have this much time, like figure out what do you need? What are your needs when it comes to motherhood? You know, write them down, you know, go from there. I mean, there's so many impactful things you can do. Find a friend that you can talk to things about, find a counselor. But we're all uprooting. We're all growing differently. We just have to figure this out, because no matter what stage you're in a motherhood, you're pregnant, you're not pregnant, you're a parent, you're a mother, you're a dad, we're all trying to figure this out, and we all need support. And when they say that whole phrase, it's been going around for years, it takes an army to like literally raise even just one child, it is true.
Yes, it
so
is.
we have to come together as an army
Yes.
and figure out, okay, you're struggling, what are the next steps? And so pretty much, I thank you so much for being here, because this is so impactful for so many people that are struggling and are scared to reach out, or scared to, or maybe not even know that they have any of this going on, because we were both the same, like, holy cow. But yeah, I thank you so much for being here, and hopefully we'll have you back on, because we have way more to talk about, folks, because her and I are we could just talk for hours. But again, thank you. And then we are going to cut for today. Every plant, every story, every mama. Keep going, keep growing, keep doing you, your way. Make sure you're subscribed to Mama Uprooted and on our email list to get your weekly rooted guide, made to ground you, support you, and grow with you. We'll be back next week, rooting for you every step of the way.